The backstage hallway at the 1988 MTV Video Music Awards buzzed with controlled chaos. Dancers stretched, makeup artists rushed between rooms, production assistants barked into walkie-talkies. In Studio B, something was about to happen that would change how the world understood performance forever. Michael Jackson stood center stage, surrounded by 20 backup dancers running through the choreography for Man in the Mirror. Lights flashed in synchronized patterns. Smoke machines tested their cues. A costume rack nearby held 4 different outfit changes for his 6-minute performance. Every movement was calculated, rehearsed 1,000 times, designed to mesmerize. This wasn't just a song, this was a production. Whitney Houston walked past the rehearsal room on her way to vocal warm-up. She paused at the doorway, watching Michael spin and moonwalk, commanding the space with military precision. Michael caught her reflection in one of the stage monitors. He stopped mid-spin and waved her in. "Whitney, come watch this. We just perfected the final sequence." Whitney stepped into the rehearsal space. Michael nodded to his musical director, and the track started. For the next 8 minutes, Whitney watched a masterclass in entertainment. Michael orchestrated every light cue, every dance move, every costume reveal with millisecond precision. It was also exhausting just to watch. When the music stopped, Michael's dancers collapsed on the floor, breathing hard. Michael himself was barely winded, but his shirt was soaked through. He grabbed a towel and walked over to Whitney, his face glowing with pride. "So?" he asked, genuinely seeking her opinion. "What do you think? Too much? Not enough?" Whitney smiled warmly. "It's incredible, Michael. Really. The precision is unbelievable." Michael beamed. Then his expression shifted, becoming more thoughtful. He glanced at the call sheet in his assistant's hand. "You're performing Greatest Love of All tonight, right?" "Yes." "How many dancers?" "None." Michael's eyebrows rose. "Costume changes?" "Just one dress, start to finish." "Pyrotechnics? Special lighting?" Whitney laughed. "Just a microphone and a spotlight." Michael's face showed something between confusion and concern. He wasn't being condescending. He was genuinely puzzled. "Whitney, you're an amazing vocalist. Everyone knows that. But this is MTV. This is television. This is about visuals, movement, spectacle." He gestured to the elaborate set behind him. "Standing still with a microphone is what you do in a recording studio, not on a stage in front of 20,000 people." Whitney's smile didn't fade, but something shifted in her eyes. "So you think I need all this to hold people's attention?" Michael chose his words carefully. He respected Whitney deeply, but he also knew his craft. "I think television has a different language than radio. People's attention spans are short. You need to give them something to watch, not just something to hear. That's why I create these productions. The music is important, but the show is what they remember." "So the voice isn't enough?" "The voice is beautiful, Whitney, but beautiful voices are everywhere. What separates good from legendary is the complete package." He wasn't trying to hurt her, just sharing his philosophy. Whitney nodded slowly. "What if I could hold 20,000 people's attention for 8 minutes without moving?" Michael's expression was kind but skeptical. "I'd say you'd have either the best 8 minutes of your life or the worst. Standing still on a stage that big, the camera finds every flaw. The audience gets restless. There's nowhere to hide." He put his hand on her shoulder, friendly, protective. "That's why I move. Movement creates energy. Energy creates connection." "And what if movement is a distraction?" Whitney asked quietly. Michael pulled his hand back, slightly taken aback. "A distraction from what?" "From what the song is trying to say." For a moment, Michael was silent. Then he laughed, but it wasn't dismissive. It was the laugh of someone encountering an idea they'd never considered. "Okay, Whitney, you really think you can hold 20,000 people captive for 8 minutes by just standing there and singing?" "I don't think. I know." Michael's competitive spirit flickered in his eyes. Not malicious, but curious. "Then show me tonight. Prove it. 8 minutes. No dancers, no tricks. Just you and the voice. If you can make that work on the biggest stage in music television." He trailed off, leaving the challenge hanging in the air. Whitney extended her hand. "Deal." They shook hands, but there was no animosity, Just two artists with completely different philosophies about what made a performance legendary. That night, the Universal Amphitheater in Los Angeles was packed to capacity. The MTV Video Music Awards were the biggest music event of the year, and everyone who mattered in the industry was there. Michael Jackson was set to close the show with his elaborate Man in the Mirror production. Whitney Houston was scheduled for the middle slot, right after a commercial break. Backstage, 3 minutes before her cue, Whitney stood alone in her dressing room. Her makeup was flawless. Her white gown was simple but elegant. No sequins, no feathers, no theatrics, just fabric and form. Her vocal coach knocked on the door. "Whitney, they're calling for you." "I'll be right there." "You okay? You seem quiet." Whitney looked at her reflection in the mirror. "I'm about to do something that's either going to be brilliant or career-ending." "What do you mean?" "I'm about to find out if the voice is enough." On stage, the lights dimmed. The audience, still buzzing from the previous performance, settled into their seats. A single spotlight appeared at center stage. No smoke, no lasers, no dramatic entrance music, just light. Whitney walked into that spotlight wearing her white gown, holding a wireless microphone. She stood perfectly still at the center of the massive stage and smiled at the 20,000 people watching her. For 5 seconds, she said nothing, just stood there. Some audience members shifted uncomfortably. In the broadcast booth, the director muttered, "Is this a technical issue?" Then Whitney opened her mouth, and the opening notes of Greatest Love of All filled the amphitheater. No track, no backing vocals. Just her voice and a piano played by someone in the orchestra pit below. "The children are our future." The note was pure, crystal clear. It cut through the arena like a laser, reaching the back row with the same intensity as the front. Whitney didn't move, didn't dance, didn't even walk. She just stood there and sang, "Teach them well and let them lead the way." Backstage, Michael Jackson had finished his pre-show warm-up and was watching on a monitor. His choreographer stood next to him, skeptical. "This is going to be brutal. You can't hold a crowd like this without movement." Michael didn't respond. He was transfixed. On stage, Whitney was 45 seconds into the song, and something impossible was happening. The audience, which had been restless just moments before, had gone completely silent. Not the silence of boredom, the silence of reverence. Whitney's eyes were closed now. She wasn't performing for the cameras anymore. She wasn't even performing for the audience. She was singing for something bigger. Every word she sang carried weight. Every note had intention. This wasn't a show. It was a testimony. Michael watched the monitor, his mouth slightly open. His choreographer had stopped talking. Everyone backstage was watching the same thing. 20,000 people sitting in absolute silence, hypnotized by a woman who wasn't doing anything except standing still and singing. 2 minutes in, the camera did a slow pan across the audience. Faces were lit by the stage light, and every single person was completely still. Some had tears on their cheeks. Others had their hands over their hearts. No one was checking their watch. No one was talking. Learning to love yourself is the greatest love of all. Whitney opened her eyes for the bridge. Still didn't move. Just stood in that spotlight and let her voice do everything. And that's when Michael understood what he'd been missing. He had spent his entire career believing that performance was about what you added to the music, the choreography, the costumes, the spectacle. He thought entertainment meant giving the audience more than they expected. But watching Whitney, he realized there was another kind of performance, one that didn't add anything, one that removed everything except the essential, the truth, the emotion, the soul. Whitney wasn't hiding behind dancers. She wasn't using pyrotechnics to create excitement. She was completely exposed, completely vulnerable, standing alone in a spotlight with nothing to protect her except the power of her gift. And it was devastating. At the 4-minute mark, the song built to its climax. Whitney's voice soared into the rafters of the amphitheater. She held a note for what felt like an eternity, and the audience collectively held their breath. When the note finally resolved, there was a moment of absolute silence. Not even a cough. 20,000 people frozen in time. Then the arena exploded. The standing ovation was instantaneous and deafening. People weren't just clapping. They were weeping. They were screaming. Whitney smiled, gave a small bow, and walked off stage. 8 minutes and 12 seconds. No dancers, no costume changes, no special effects. Just the voice. Backstage, Michael Jackson stood motionless, staring at the monitor. His choreographer looked at him, waiting for a reaction. Finally, Michael spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "I've been doing it wrong." "What?" "All of it. I've been doing all of it wrong. Michael, you're the biggest star in the world. My performances are distractions." He said it without bitterness, just realization. "I've been so afraid of boring people that I've been distracting them from what matters." His musical director stepped forward. "Michael, your show is about to start. Are you okay?" "I need to talk to her," Michael said suddenly. "Now." Michael walked through the backstage maze until he found Whitney's dressing room. He knocked softly. When Whitney saw him, she smiled. "Did I pass your test?" Michael's eyes were red. He'd been crying. "You didn't just pass. Can I come in?" She nodded. Michael sat down and for a long moment just looked at Whitney. Finally, he spoke. "I've spent my entire career building armor, choreography, costumes, effects. I thought that's what made me special. But watching you tonight, I realized something. I've been hiding. I've been so afraid that just me, just my voice, just my truth wouldn't be enough. So I surrounded myself with everything else. Michael, your performances are incredible. They're shields, Whitney. Beautiful shields, but shields nonetheless." He wiped his eyes. "You walked out there with nothing, no protection, just your voice and your truth. And you held 20,000 people in the palm of your hand. That's not performance. That's power. Real power." Whitney reached across and took his hand. "Your truth looks different than mine, Michael. That's okay. You move because movement is your language. I stand still because stillness is mine." "No." Michael shook his head. "What you did tonight was braver. I'm going to go out there and do my show, and it's going to be spectacular. But for the first time, I'll know that all that spectacle is beautiful and unnecessary." "So what will you do different?" Michael thought for a moment. "I don't know yet, but something has changed. You've changed something in me tonight. You've reminded me that the show is supposed to serve the song, not replace it." There was a knock. "Michael, 5 minutes to places." He stood up. Before he left, he turned back. "Thank you for showing me that naked honesty is more powerful than perfect choreography." That night, Michael Jackson performed Man in the Mirror exactly as rehearsed. The dancers were flawless, the lights spectacular. The audience gave him a standing ovation. But in the years that followed, something shifted in Michael's approach to performance. He started stripping things back, creating moments in his shows where he would stand still, alone in a spotlight, and just sing. No tricks, just truth. In a 2001 interview, Michael was asked about his evolution as a performer. His answer referenced that night in 1988. "Whitney Houston taught me something I'd forgotten. All the dancing, all the production, all the spectacle in the world means nothing if you've lost touch with why you're performing in the first place. I had 20 dancers. She had 20,000 souls in the palm of her hand with just her voice. That's not a show. That's a spiritual experience. Sometimes," he continued, "the most powerful performance is doing absolutely nothing. Standing still and telling your truth is scarier than any choreography I've ever learned. Because when you're standing still, there's nowhere to hide." Whitney didn't hide. She showed me that real courage isn't adding more. It's stripping everything away until all that's left is the essential. Whitney Houston never knew the full impact of that 8-minute performance on Michael Jackson's artistic journey. But everyone who worked with Michael after 1988 noticed the change. The irony was beautiful. The king of pop, the man who had perfected the art of performance, learned from the voice that sometimes the greatest performance is the absence of performance. Two legends, two completely different approaches, one unforgettable night that changed how both of them understood their gifts. And in the end, that's what makes art transcendent, not the choreography or the costumes or the special effects, but the moments when an artist is brave enough to stand completely still and let their truth be enough. Whitney Houston proved that night that the voice didn't need a show. The voice was the show, And Michael Jackson, the greatest performer who ever lived, stood backstage and wept because he finally understood. Sometimes doing nothing is everything.